about this prosecutor.
I think it's a choice actually between integrity and corruption, good and bad.
That was Willis, but not talking about this case. There she was discussing what she called a choice during her campaign for this post, and we'll get to that in a few moments. It's pretty interesting. But on this case, she previewed these upcoming arguments by outlining the legal theory that Trump and those co-defendants actually formed a legal gang or racketeering enterprise, which existed to overthrow Biden's lawful win in Georgia.
Rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result.
Now, that state racketeering law is a powerful tool for prosecutors. There were observers who questioned whether this was a reach to use it in the Trump case. But I can tell you tonight, Willis's approach is not specific to Trump. She's deployed this powerful law in other untraditional ways, even before she rose to this job. Which brings us to this special report for you tonight, because if Willis is suddenly now a prominent name for news viewers, for people in MAGA households where Trump's been attacking her, now that she's the prosecutor going first on the coup cases, her entire record and approach also matter. It can inform how these trials go, whether she starts racking up a winning streak on her way to defending Trump, or hits hurdles in a strategy that charges high and wide. I can tell you Willis used this same charging approach in a case some lawyers would not have brought as a RICO charge when she went after teachers and administrators over a wide-ranging school cheating scheme. Now, Willis led that prosecution, indicting teachers as a RICO enterprise. And while that was a somewhat unusual approach, she gave a fiery set of opening arguments laying out how she viewed, and thus the prosecutor's office viewed, the scheme's victims as clearly taken advantage of by RICO abuse, and that those victims included children.
Widespread cheating.
That's at the heart of the state's case, a cheating culture, conspiracy.
And to create a false impression of academic success for many students in the Atlanta public school system.
In the nearly 3-hour opening, prosecutor Fani Willis talked to failing students and frustrated parents.
She wants extra services for her daughter, extra tutoring and extra services that she's entitled to. But she can't get them because when you look at the CRCT scores, it says this child doesn't need them. She's meeting and exceeding the expectations.
That's what it sounds like when Willis is bringing a case. That record there is newly relevant right now because you don't have to be a Trump apologist or a school cheating apologist to question whether that legal theory was too fierce. And there are prosecutors who are accused of overcharging cases simply to stoke fear and leverage to get pleas out of that overcharging. In Atlanta, we can tell you some question whether throwing the book at teachers who had no criminal record was the proportionate response to cheating, even if it was an ethics problem in schools.
Were they overcharged? Was it overkill? For many of these people who've never been in trouble in their lives.
If people really understand what the racketeering charge is, it is most often used for corporations. And so the theory was that the Atlanta Public Schools was a corporation, and through the corporation, they did false documents and false statements.
Willis going beyond rhetoric there to explain how racketeering as an actual legal matter works in that state, and she won.
Atlanta public school educators convicted of racketeering, conspiring to fix standardized test scores to improve results.
There were thousands of children that were harmed in this thing. This is not a victimless crime.
There were 11 convictions. 3 people got 7 years in prison. Others got less time, fines, community service. The case shows how today's RICO defendants could also run out the clock, because we should note that whole trial, it ran 8 months. Now, by 2020, Willis was running to take over the DA's office from her boss, incumbent DA Paul Howard, who had 2 decades of experience but was facing questions about financial improprieties. Willis seized on that. She campaigned on cleaning up the office and boldly argued that her boss represented the corrupt ways of the past, which powered her victory.
I think it's a choice actually between integrity and corruption, good and bad. I think it's a classic fight, and I think that citizens will have to make a choice. We have a district attorney now that works for his own